Not always about having the biggest idea in the room. It's about being able to regulate yourself and help regulate the room to bring out the best possible situation. It was profound and so powerful to see the transformation of the clinicians going through the program. And the word that first came to mind was freedom. Freedom from all of the things that have held them back.
In this episode, we welcome Dr. Julie Wilkes, who's going to talk about emotional intelligence. What's your EQ level? What are some in-the-moment strategies you can use to really get out of those stressful situations? And what habits can you bring into your life so you can feel more focused, have a calmer inner world of your own, so that you can react to the world in a way that you'll be proud of and a way that helps you further your vision? So let's dive in with Dr. Julie Wilkes and learn more about emotional intelligence. I am so excited to announce the launch of an innovative new product from Vista Apex Solutions called the Endocator. The Endocator is the first ever chair-side device that actually allows you to verify and test whether your canals are clean before you obturate. Utilizing ATP as a biomarker, this device is able to let you know that the canals are clean before finishing a case. How valuable is that? Visit Vista Apex Solutions at vistaapex.com to learn more about the Endocator. Because remember, you can't see clean on an x-ray. Dentists, are you ready to take your practice to the next level? Directa USA, the North American arm of Directa Dental Group, brings you innovative, high-quality products from around the world, designed to improve both your technique and patient outcomes. We're more than just products. We're a partner in your success. With a solution-based approach and expert-backed innovation, Directa USA helps you provide the best care possible. Better products mean better dentistry. Visit them today at directausa.com. Welcome back to On the Cusp. I'm your host, Dr. Brett Gilbert, back with a really exciting episode with someone who I have so much respect for, a guest that I am so excited to really mix it up with and talk with, because she and I speak the same language and we're working together as business partners. And I can't wait to introduce you here to Dr. Julie Wilkes. I want to just preface it by saying she has such an impressive background, and it's really all rooted in her heart. She has a really powerful story in her life regarding her heart, and she really leads with that and leads with love. And I'm so grateful to have her on the show here. But just to give you a snippet of what she's all about. So Dr. Julie Wilkes has a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology. She's been an executive at a Fortune 10 company for many, many years. She's a consultant that offers a number of different programs. She's always speaking to groups. She really has an incredible voice in the world to really always just be helping other people. She's a speaker, as I mentioned. She speaks to all different types of organizations in an effort to help them and the individuals that make those groups run. She's the author of The 7 Life Miracles, which I hope we'll be able to get into today. She's a coach. She is, in my opinion, from afar, a local celebrity in the Columbus, Ohio area. She's always on the morning TV. She's been a part of Lewis Howes' Summit of Greatness for many years. She's just really, really active. She owns a studio as well where she conducts yoga classes, breath work. This is an individual that is really putting herself out there in an effort to help her own life be as fulfilled and enriched as possible, but sharing this love and these skills and all of her education with other people. And really, really exciting. I want to just put a big emphasis and exclamation on this. She is also now a podcaster, as her podcast, Science Meets Soul, just dropped their second episode. Dr. Julie Wilkes, welcome to On the Cusp.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Brett. It is so great to be here. And wow, what a great introduction that was. Thank you so much. And I'm so looking forward to sharing in our energy today.
Absolutely. So, just a little bit of background. Julie and I came into contact from a dear friend, Chris Hawker. Since then, we have sort of come together as a trio and are partnering in a new emotional intelligence program for clinicians, which we'll definitely get into through the episode. But Julie, before we get started, if you wouldn't mind just sharing with the audience, what are you feeling grateful for today?
I am so grateful for the opportunity to hang out with you, because just as much as my intention is to share with your viewers, I know that I'll leave here better than I started. And so I'm just grateful for knowing people like you and being able to blend our minds together to inspire others. And then I think also, on if you call me, if you listen to my voicemail, I ask every single person to tell me what they're grateful for before they tell me what they're calling about. And so I really got into the habit of, trying to think about not only just things that we're typically grateful for, but those really minute things. And I'll tell you, today I walked out of my house to take my dogs on a walk, and I just noticed a change in the leaves. I just noticed a change in maybe the color of the sky. It's like a new season. So I'm just grateful for that ability to observe something like that and take that pause. So there you go. That's a little bit of gratitude goes a long way.
It sure does. And no matter what we're teaching or what program you go to, gratitude practice is so important. And that's why I like to lead off every episode, and every guest has a different answer, something that they feel grateful for in that moment. And so super, super grateful to have the opportunity to have you on the show to talk. So Julie, I want to talk a little bit about emotional intelligence, because it's an area that you've done tremendous amount of study and practice. We're currently, as I mentioned, we're teaching it. We're offering this incredibly transformative Heal Thyself program for clinicians. But on a basic level, I think when people hear about emotional intelligence or EQ, it's a little bit vague as to what exactly it means. So I'm just curious if you could share, what does emotional intelligence truly mean? And how could someone have a better understanding of what their own level of emotional intelligence is?
Well, emotional intelligence is our ability to be self-aware and self-regulate, as well as be aware of others and help regulate as well, meaning bring out the best in them and in a situation, in order to, use just all of our senses to really understand what's truly going on. So often when we react or we use judgments or previous experiences to lead the way towards decisions and assumptions, we get it wrong. So when we can develop and focus on leading with emotional intelligence and really being able to first start with ourselves, being aware of how we feel, why we feel, and being able to regulate in such a way that we know that 2 seconds from now, there will be an outcome to whatever choice we made, and that we want the outcome that we get. And so that's in our self-regulation of choosing that pathway. And then when it's coming to working with others, it's truly about being aware of how they're responding to us or responding in a situation, having that empathy for understanding that it may be bigger than what the eye can see, and being able to bring out the best in them to help them to move forward and then to move forward together typically. So it's a really cool focus in our lives. All of us have the ability to not only develop this, it's not something that you're either born with or you're not. Certainly different people probably have developed it at different levels throughout their life based on their upbringings, their schooling, their experiences. But no matter where you are, what you're doing in your life, emotional intelligence is always something that can be developed. And we'll talk a little bit more about some techniques we can use today to start working on developing our own here in a few minutes. But I would also say that one of the things to think about is your why. Why would you care to develop this? And one of I've studied a lot in my doctoral program. This is one of the areas that I focused on. It's actually what I wrote my dissertation on. And I would say that Dan Goleman is one of my favorites in terms of some of the work that he's produced in this area. Sometimes considered the father of emotional intelligence, although there's a lot of different people attributed to really leading the way with this area. But one of the things he said is emotional intelligence is twice as important as regular intelligence when it comes to a work setting. So it's not always about having the biggest idea in the room. It's about being able to regulate yourself and help regulate the room to bring out the best possible situation.
Wow. Wow. I mean, tapping into this just feels like the gold, and it certainly has been in my life. When people hear EQ, tell us, what does that mean? What are those two letters? Why are they put together? Just so we can kind of clear the deck as far as any obscurity about what emotional intelligence and EQ represents.
Yeah, so you've heard of IQ, and this is your intelligence level. You can take tests to determine your mental adaptability, your aptitude for being able to solve things and know things. Well, your EQ is that more emotional side, that a more emotional regulation, if you will. But it is similar to IQ in the fact that it's our intelligence, but it's within that emotional side of regulating. And so there's many, many different surveys, questionnaires, studies out there that can tell you that EQ consists of different components. Again, I'll go back to quoting with Goleman. He came up with 12 different competencies or areas that emotional intelligence is made up on, and they consist of things such as, leadership and empathy and coaching and different areas of how we lead in our lives. But if, I don't necessarily just subscribe to his way. I'm very much about always reading on who's doing work in this area and what have they come to find out. And sometimes when people are exploring this from a work perspective, they might take a different path than they might from a personal perspective. Mayo Savlovsky looked at traits of emotional intelligence when they put together their surveys and put together their questionnaires that help people to really come up with their EQ score. So what I would just say is the EQ score is an ability for you to sort of measure your emotional intelligence now, and then as you do the work to continue to develop it, whether it's just you're very intentional about exploring certain areas, or you take a course such as Heal Thyself that we offer, or other areas, you can then take your emotional intelligence survey or whichever you've chosen again, and you can see the rise in your ability to be more regulated within yourself. It pretty much just means you're more in touch with yourself, and how you recognize your response will create the outcomes of the future.
Yeah. And when we're talking about outcomes as clinicians, which is my primary audience, those outcomes could be personal, they could be family, but a lot of times they're patient centered, and the ability to communicate and to feel and to really be the best healer that you can be. So, my background in emotional intelligence is that I never heard about it basically until I was 43 years old. We didn't hear about it in dental school. I didn't have any mentors talking about it. But when I engaged with it and I took some very in-depth emotional intelligence training, well documented here on the podcast, but it was truly a game changer in my life. And the reason, and the best way I can describe it is as Julie's talking about, it's about sort of seeing things differently, because you're actually seeing your internal space, your internal mindset, what you believe, what maybe you believe that is not serving you, the ways that we sort of get in our own way from an ego standpoint, from the standpoint of that voice in our head, right? They call it the committee, there's just all these voices telling you why you can't do something or the other. And when I really went in depth and engaged and invested my time in emotional intelligence training, it changed everything, because all of a sudden I was out of my own way, and I was able to start to, as Julie's saying, start to create or manifest the outcomes I wanted in my life, basically by just having this better focus and understanding of myself. So Julie, coming back to that, with your, work with so many different groups and types of people, including now clinicians, because we just successfully ran our first cohort of Heal Thyself. We had an incredible group of clinicians. They were so engaged. They took so much away from this type of work that they had never done before. And I'm just curious, what themes might come up in general when you're working with someone or coaching them, is in regards to sort of just touching into emotional intelligence. What are some of the common themes? Because we're all human, right? They say that it's same devil, different details. But what might a listener hear from you that might be like, oh, that actually is a recurring problem? I guess what I'm asking is, what themes in human life might we be able to recognize that we may be able to improve by engaging or investing our time into training in emotional intelligence?
Oh, yes. Well, so I am so fascinated in why we do what we do, why we don't do what we want to do, why we do what we don't want to do. All of these things, I'm super fascinated with human behavior, and then helping human beings to actually achieve the outcomes that they're looking for. And what we have found is oftentimes we get distracted, or we've labeled something in an incorrect way. Something happened one time in our life that was negative, and now our subconscious has labeled that as something bad. And as we approach it again, subconsciously, we're getting these messages about reaction or threat or something that's causing us to have what I like to call our limiting beliefs. And these are things that are getting in our way of truly achieving the outcomes that we were destined to create for ourselves. And so I think that one of the first things when we're looking at emotional intelligence, a common theme is understanding your truth. So often we get caught up in old labels and old emotions that maybe we haven't taken care of yet. If there's something that broke your heart many years ago and you've kind of put it under, just kind of compartmentalized it, never really dealt with it, it will keep coming up for you in the form of mischanneled energy, threat responses, anger, frustration, or sometimes you don't even know why you reacted the way you did. And typically that's because there's something that we created at one time that we still haven't addressed yet. So I think one of the most common things we can look at are when we're trying to achieve something and something gets in our way, if we pull up into assessing how we're feeling about it and our emotions about it and why we're reacting the way we do and why did we label it that way or why did we give a judgment to that person in that way, it's likely because it came from something within us. So I love one of the first things I love to work with people on is understanding if we do have these old stories that no longer make sense and rewriting them, letting go of those things. If you failed, that was one moment in time. It doesn't mean that you're going to fail the next time you do it. And let's put this into a great example. Let's talk about let's say that somebody set a New Year's resolution and they were this was the year they were going to lose the weight and they didn't. And then every year after they think about doing the same thing, but their subconscious starts to tell them, well, you didn't do it last time. You probably won't do it this time. And they self-sabotage and they never really get there. And so what we have to do is really get to know ourselves at such a level that we pull out our truth and we pull out the false narratives and we start by identifying those and we rewrite our script to speak in such a way that helps us to move forward. Now, oftentimes this can be pretty complicated. So that's why a course like Heal Thyself or, working, very specifically within certain curriculum can help us because these are old patterns that we've laid down a long time ago that have become our truth, whether we know it or not. And so I would say, Dr. Brett, first thing, number one, is peeling back the layers, truly understanding ourselves. And maybe it's as simple as picking one thing that you know that you sometimes respond to in life that you don't always respond to it in the best way. Maybe it's that your partner tends to just say that one thing that gets under your skin and then you get reactive. Or maybe when you're at work and, the fifth, patient comes in and they're late and this is the fifth person late and your whole schedule's getting thrown and you're frustrated. And now all of a sudden something starts to come up in your head where you're frustrated. These are the things I would encourage somebody to pick, something that throws you in your day and start to peel back the layers as to, where did that originally come from and how could you rewrite that script and then start working on techniques to help you to be aware of it and rewrite it for the future. We'll get into a little bit more about other things we can do, but that's, I think, one of the most common things I see with people.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I think that's really important, right? Is sometimes the way we label something sticks with us and it's now a filter through which we judge and look at everything that we're about to take on. Julie, I really want to ask you, and, again, the audience here, primarily clinicians, not all, but you've now had an opportunity through our Heal Thyself program to really in depth get in touch with, listen to, and observe really high performing clinicians showing up into an opportunity to really sort of do some emotional intelligence and resilience training. So I'm just curious because I look, as clinicians, as high performers, and you can certainly relate to this in your own work, we can continue to go as we're going and we won't ever know the difference. But what did you notice? Like, what might a listener also notice in themselves that you observe within the Heal Thyself program that might be some warning signs that they might be headed more toward a burnout stage in life versus really feeling fulfilled? Can you I'm just being totally honest, can you just sort of maybe just share what you observed having this close interaction with the clinicians?
It was profound and so powerful to see the transformation of the clinicians going through the program. And the word that first came to mind was freedom from all of the things that have held them back. And so signs that someone is now starting to experience burnout and maybe just keeps going. I think that we were taught, I know I experienced this from my own self as I got into my first corporate job and wanted to be impressive and wanted to be successful. You give an inch and others will take a mile if you let them, because why wouldn't someone want to they know that you're going to provide good service. And so they're just going to keep taking and taking and taking. So you have to be able to set your own boundaries. And if you feel like you've lost your boundaries, you feel like there's a blur between work and life, you're not looking forward to going into work anymore. You're already anticipating the challenges of the day. You're already exhausted before you even get to work. You've already played out in your head 3 or 4 things that are going to go wrong today. These are all pretty strong signs that you may be experiencing these levels of burnout that are so very common, especially in a clinical setting where as a clinician, you've chosen a path to take care of others. And I'm sure people have heard this a million times before, but the most common thing that we see with clinicians particularly is that they don't as much take care of themselves because they're so focused on taking care of others. And at first, a clinician will feel fulfilled because they're taking care of others. And it becomes more and more of their habitual pattern is, today I'm just serving, I'm serving, I'm serving. And they start to forget about serving themselves. And so that's when the boundaries go away. That's when all of a sudden things start to feel a little unmanageable at first. It may be just a little off balance, and then starts to feel really, you might start to feel your staff, not feeling as good, or you're starting to feel more challenges in general solving problems. And, in general, taking any of the problems that come up in the day, when we are feeling good and well rested and emotionally regulated, we take those problems in stride. And when we're not, and we're facing burnout, those problems become huge fires, and we run around with just trying to put them out and feeling like we're never getting ahead.
That's so true. And, that's really my story, just how you described it, starting out being the selfless clinician, and ultimately what you lose is yourself, right?
Yes.
Because you ultimately are pouring from an empty cup. And that led me right into burnout. It took about 13 years to truly understand that was where I was. And that's really what the motivation is with our Heal Thyself program, is to help clinicians first and foremost recognize it, because you get into this autopilot where you don't even realize it. But, Julie and Chris and I, we've talked a lot about, what might put you at risk, if you're feeling trapped, if you're feeling pressure financially, if you're feeling less engaged, maybe you're making a few more errors, maybe your relationships aren't as strong at home. Maybe you're dropping the ball at home, all of these different things, feeling emotionally exhausted, sometimes dreading that you have to go to work the day of or the night before. These are risk signs that you're probably trending toward that burnout level. And we're so excited because I'm a perfect example of someone who used embracing my emotional intelligence where I was, right? Julie talked about self-limiting beliefs. It's sometimes referred to as rackets, just these things that we oftentimes have absorbed from others, or not even our original thoughts, but we use them as a filter, and it impacts how we think, what we feel, to Julie's point, how we react. And ultimately, I found that when I started to take this emotional intelligence education, training, however you want to look at it, I couldn't believe what it did for me. And in turn, what it did for me as a clinician, because I was able to start to truly grow into my potential and be the healthiest version of myself. And that's why we're offering this program to all clinicians, because we recognize that this just simply isn't education that really exists. Although Julie can attest, CEOs, entrepreneurs, all the people that are really, really doing amazing in their life, many of them have gone through this type of training. So why the people entrusted to take care of others as clinicians are not engaged with this is something we are really, truly committed to changing. And we're putting ourselves out there with our company Tailwind Trainings to be able to create programming for all different clinicians to really help them engage with this. So Julie, with that in mind, and you being a PhD, and I know every time we get a conversation going, I love that you're always bringing up evidence. You know what evidence basis looks like. Your podcast is called Science Meets Soul. So I know you alluded to, different practices and things, but where can you give our clinician audience a little evidence basis here for what we're describing? And maybe that looks like supporting the actual type of education and training, but also maybe some of the practices and what they can do for us.
Oh, yes. Well, and so we know that people who are practicing emotional intelligence techniques are going to improve their productivity. They're going to improve their presenteeism at work and their overall happiness levels by at least 40 to 50%. So if you're practicing these emotional intelligence techniques, looking at just taking that bar and raising it for yourself, that's what you're doing for yourself. And so I think a lot of people don't know where to start, and they may say, well, there's all these models out there, there's all these different suggestions. So where do you begin? So my advice is, first of all, start with one thing. And one thing maybe, if you're going through your day and you're starting to notice areas where you're getting exhausted or you're being more reactive or you're not making that decision that you normally would have thought you were making and you're starting to put pressure, Dr. Brett, one of the other things I feel like clinicians are really good at are leading with imposter syndrome, where they don't feel, maybe they almost feel like, am I really even good enough to be doing this? Or maybe somebody's going to eventually think that I'm not that good. We have all these insecurities that come from somewhere. And so really it's knocking those things out. And it may start by just beginning the day with affirmative statements. There's a lot of studies out there that say just doing this alone, if you repeat affirmative statements before you begin your day, you're planting the seeds into your brain for how the day is going to go. And I think I'm trying to remember back to this specific percentage. I want to say it was 78% of people who are doing daily affirmations notice that their days went better every time. And so just knowing how you're setting yourself up. Now, I also think that there's something to be said for creating those daily habits or patterns, like a daily affirmation, or maybe that's not your thing right away. So maybe it's just about taking the morning and before you get going, getting up 10 extra minutes and doing some stretching and taking the time to breathe. Because what we're doing is we're sending our body this message that we are worthy of feeling good. And I'm going to get up a little bit earlier just to get myself into a good space before I've got all these energies coming at me. And so I'd say practicing daily habits that help you to take care of yourself are one of the most powerful things you can do, and finding what that means for you. Many times it's not recreating the wheel. It's not trying something absolutely new. It's you've done it before, it's worked for you, but for whatever reason, life has gotten too busy and you don't do it now. So I want you all who are listening to think about a habit that you used to do that always worked really well for you, made you feel great, but you've gotten out of it. It might be because you had kids, you started your practice. It might be that life just took over. But I want for you to declare that you're taking your life back now and just putting in those 5 or 10 minutes or whatever it was, starting off with that on a regular basis. Now, on the other side of that, there's something that I like to call in the moment strategies. And in all of my podcasts with Science Meets Soul, I try to deliver an in the moment strategy and a daily habit each time to kind of help people. But I would say that in the moment strategies mean right now, I need something I can do to pull myself out of this. And so I always say on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being relaxed and 10 being tense, anytime you would give yourself above a 5, this is a great time to perform an in the moment strategy. So that means that we're starting to veer towards being a little bit unregulated or not being able to take care of ourselves as much. And so before it gets to a point where we're very reactive and we've created all of those chemicals and hormonal responses in the body that just cause us to shut everything down and react, we can stop that by performing one of these strategies. So there's many different breathing techniques, there's tapping techniques, there's stretching techniques, there's all these different things we can do. But what I want to try with the listeners right now is a breathing technique. And this one is one of my favorites. It's one I use every day. It's one that is easy to remember, and it was developed by the Navy SEALs. So this is one of the things that I think a lot of people's ears will perk up to, that because, well, if it's good enough for the SEALs, I can tell you it's good enough for me, right? And so if it was to help SEALs in these very critical missions to stay calm, and that's what it was designed for, then it can probably help me stay calm amidst my very critical storms that I'm facing as well. And it's super simple. It's a 4-count breath in, a 4-count breath hold, a 4-count breath exhale, and a 4-count breath hold. We're going to do it one time together, but I'm going to recommend that if you practice this 3 times, has been known scientifically to help start reducing our, hormonal responses of stress. Doing it 10 times, we start to see a change in a potential blood pressure lowering. And some people may choose to do it for a couple of minutes, almost getting into more of a meditative state of regulating breath and energy flow. It's up to you, but it's something simple. So let me try it with you all. Are you good for that, Dr. Brett?
Oh, I can't wait. I love this.
All right. So sitting up tall in your chair, heart open, shoulders over your hips, hips in line with your knees over your ankles, feet flat to the floor. Roll your shoulders back to allow your chest to open up so we can take in lots of great energy. And I want you to take in a breath. And just remember, though, when you hold, if you haven't paced out your breath a little bit, sometimes we'll uh, cause us to feel like we're holding a little too long. So just know if the first time you do it, it doesn't feel quite right, try it a couple of times. All right. So here we go. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, and hold 2, 3, and 4. So that is our box breath. And I call that the in the moment strategy that helps us. So if you're about to walk into a room and you know that it's going to be a tough conversation, try that breathing technique. Do it 3 times before you walk into the room. If you've had a rough day at work and you're going to go home to your partner and you just know that you've still got work brain going on and you know that they don't deserve that and you want to try to regulate, try taking 10 breaths before you get out of your car and walk into your house. They use this as a technique that helps you to calm down, just regulate the oxygen flow back into the brain and help your nervous system soothe itself.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. I love those box breaths. And there's so many other breathing techniques that, again, Julie's podcast, Science Meets Soul, is awesome. And she gives great tips every episode. Definitely encourage you to tune in and subscribe there. And, for those out there that are listening to this, I so can put myself in the position of hearing about this for the first time. Julie, I just want to reflect back on the self-affirmations. When I first heard that, I really didn't understand. Like, if I say I am strong, I am healthy, I am free, I am wealthy, I am successful, I am creative, I am loved, I am loving, I am a healer, I am healing, I am learning, I am anything. And it didn't make sense to me until I really dove deeper into understanding how this works. And what I discovered is that there's really 2 important parts to our consciousness, right? There's the egoic mind. It's that voice in your head. It's that identifying characteristic of who you feel that you are. But then there's also a subconscious mind. And it's the subconscious mind that truly is what perpetuates our habits, our behaviors, oftentimes keeps us always kind of coming back to the same partner type or relationship type. And what saying these affirmations truly does is it's a way of programming your subconscious. So although to your ego and to your identity as who you are, it might sound silly, what you're actually doing, and as Julie was saying, is you're actually planting a seed. You're programming your subconscious so that when your subconscious is in the position of making decisions and motivating you and telling you what comes next, it's coming from a place of, I am strong, I am healthy, I am wise, I am whatever it is that you choose to do. And so breath is super important as a habit, positive affirmations, and just positive self-talk. Because I think, especially as clinicians, we can all relate to, my work is in millimeters. If my work is a millimeter short or long from where I wanted it to be, that will bug me, right? So it's a very specific. Well, if you're always telling yourself what you've done wrong, then you're actually teaching your subconscious that this is who you are. And if you flip that script and shift, and there's so many ways to do that, Julie's, the box breathing. I always think about if you're feeling stressed out, like to Julie's point, if you're above a 5, think about just moving energy, moving, shaking your hands, doing a few bounces. Just kind of think of your energy as needing to be shifted and moved. And I loved what you said about before you come in from work. I always, when I get into my car, I start the car and I always take 3 deep breaths. And I love the guidance of, if you're ever feeling stressed out, take 3 deep breaths or breathe consciously or intentionally for 3 minutes. But using these habits, these practices truly help to shift you. And that's a part of learning emotional intelligence. But as Julie said, you can easily adopt and invest a certain amount of time, whether it's 10 minutes, an hour. But if you're a busy clinician, you have a family, I have found that the time is best carved out first thing in the morning. I have a whole routine that I go through, right? You probably do too, Julie. And what I want to encourage everyone to do is start small, just like Julie said. Maybe it's just, journaling, maybe it's just talking about, I am whatever I am. I am is a very powerful statement. Maybe you set an intention for the day. Many days I'll write, today, I want to show up to the world with ease, with patience. I want to be a great healer. I want to be, graceful to myself and others, like really like a blueprint for the day. And amazingly, somehow the day often works out just that way because we've set aside the time to invest in ourselves. So I always say, start small, one thing, two things, and over time you start to build. And next thing you know, you've got a whole routine in the morning, and you start your day off knowing, first and foremost, that not only were you worthy of investing your time in yourself, but you did it. And it's like a muscle, right? The first time you do it, you wake up and you do it. You're like, wow, I actually woke up and did that. The second day, you do it again. Now you're starting to build some strength. By a week in, you're developing a habit. So really great, Julie. I really appreciate that. I'm curious also, as we're talking about the Heal Thyself program, which is really designed specifically for clinicians to drop into, to be able to, really engage with this type of learning. It's all experiential. It's all, collaborating with other colleagues that are in the program. But Julie, talk a little bit about what else are you offering at this time? What's exciting for you in your repertoire of offerings? I just want you to share with the audience where else we might be able to interact with you.
Yeah, well, first of all, Dr. Brett, one of the things I wanted to mention is these in-the-moment strategies and daily practices are all things that we've put together in a program with Heal Thyself. So that when you take that course, you get a variety of these different tools and techniques. We call them, your Thrive toolkit, if you will. And so they include emotional intelligence techniques, breathing techniques, different way, emotional intelligence might be about reframing, or the emotional regulation of the day, where the breathing is that in the moment strategy. Could be tapping and meditation, other things like that. So it's really, really cool. The things, though, that are getting me excited is I've got a book coming out, and it is also called Science Meets Soul. I sort of packaged these up. I put the podcast together at the same time I was writing the book. And the funny thing about this book is I finished it. So we're recording this in April. I finished this in December, and I put it to the side because I just knew something wasn't right. I just knew that I needed a little bit more work on it. And I put it to the side for a while, and lo and behold, I came across some new studies, some new interesting things that I wanted to add into it. And now I feel like it's where I wanted it to be. So I'm excited to launch it here in the next couple of months. I am traveling overseas to Amsterdam and a couple of other places to present at medical conferences around emotional intelligence. I'm presenting to both dental specialists as well as medical specialists and doctors. And so I really am excited to have those opportunities. And then I would just say, personally, I feel like we always have to keep exploring our own selves. And so, every couple of months, I take a look at my own emotional intelligence again. Even though I've studied this for many years, I've practiced it, I have my own in the moment strategies and daily habits. But if we don't have an accountability to them, it's easy to see them dissipate over time. And so I've really gotten on a focus of rediscovering some of my techniques that help me. And I've been getting up early every day and taking a long walk. Now, why this long walk has been really great for me is I have two dachshunds who I love, and their legs do not want to go the whole way. So I carry them in two different backpacks, front and back, and it definitely brings a lot of smiles to all my neighbors. They might think I've lost my mind, but it makes everybody smile. So I truly enjoy that. So I would just say that, this is the stuff that gets me excited, and it's that self-discovery. It's that rediscovery again. A study that came out a while ago now, but if you do your daily affirmations while you're doing something physical like walking, they imprint much stronger. So once you've written them down and you repeat them, you need to be able to repeat them, program that brain to believe them. And then let's say you do stretching, or my coach actually had me for years jumping on a treadmill and declaring them out, jumping on a trampoline. I had a little mini trampoline in my office and declaring them out loud as I was jumping on the trampoline. Now, as I take my long walks, I'll repeat them for a while until they've become so ingrained. It's amazing how I live into that each day when I do that. And I want to offer a little, I'll call it, I say this with all of my clients and my students. I want you to all try a little science fair experiment for yourself on this, especially when you mention those daily affirmations, Dr. Brett, because I agree. A lot of folks who, especially if this is a bit foreign and you've not been practicing in this way, it may not seem like the top of your list, something to try. And it may feel very inauthentic at first. And so what I would encourage you to do, and this is what I have my students do, is, prove it to yourself. Show some, I'll have my yoga students stand in a challenging pose like a warrior one, which is taxing on the legs and the core and the arms. And I will say things, and I will encourage them to say things of strength and of power. I've got this. This is easy. I feel strong today. And then I'll ask them to say things to themselves like, I feel very tired. This pose is very hard. I want to quit this pose. And to assess for themselves how their body reacts. And it's amazing how our body will live into what we told it. Somebody who was just holding this really strong, powerful pose, all of a sudden you can see their posture change, that they droop, they drop. And it's because it's what we've suggested to ourselves. So your words are powerful. Suggest to yourself that you've got this today. Suggest to yourself that you're going to make today the very best you can be. And not every day is the best day, but there's great in every day. And it's about us focusing more on that. There's more negative emotions than positive emotions out there. If we look at the top 7 emotions, I think 5 of them are absolutely aligned with negativity. And one of them, happiness or joy, that's the clear winner of the positivity. But another one, like surprise, sometimes could be bad, sometimes could be good, depending on the situation. But think about that. If so many of our top emotions are negative, no wonder we're more likely to tread in that direction. There's more options for us to pick from. So we must be intentional about choosing the emotion that will serve us the best.
Yeah, no doubt. And, I love that, because what we're really talking about is taking control of your inner world. If you can be peaceful in your inner world and still, it's amazing how much more enjoyable life is, how much more focused you can be, how much more present. And I think what I love about your in the moment strategies are, it's easy for us to be with inner peace for a moment, right? But it's when we slip and something happens, what are your strategies to come back? Because yes, your words are very powerful. When you say something, it's said, and it can hurt people. It can also support and uplift people. But
Yes.
I would say an even magnified impact is the words inside. And they may never come out of your mouth, but even just spoken in your mind. And so I love these strategies for building resilience so that we can retain our own inner world. It's our choice how our inner world, being inside of our skin, what does that existence look like? For many of us, it's noisy, chaotic, it's painful, it's full of trauma. That was actually my position until I started to invest. And what I love what you said, Julie, about your book, it was finished in December, but it wasn't finished. Well, that intuition is much more louder, right? When you're quiet inside. And so
that's right.
All of your practices probably allowed you to determine, and look, it wound up becoming something that allowed you to improve your project.
Yes, that's right. Intuition, trusting yourself, it's so important. And you can do that so much more clearly and easily when you've done the work, when you've worked on your emotional intelligence, when you've really pulled back the layers, when you understand yourself and you're really clear how you want to show up and you give yourself the tools to be able to show up that way. If you've ever heard yourself say, gosh, I just don't feel myself, or I just haven't been reacting myself. Now, sometimes if you don't feel yourself, that may warrant talking to a counselor or talking to someone in the medical field who can support you more. So I do want to emphasize that. But sometimes it may just be about that we've been going down this, rabbit hole too long, and it's kind of taken us to a place that we no longer recognize ourselves. And we remember used to being happy or fulfilled or purposeful, or we used to be very positive, and now we notice like more of the things coming out of our mouth are negative, or we're noticing the negative, or we're not really believing the things anymore. So really, it's just getting back to that. How do you want to show up every day, and knowing that these tools will help you to do that?
Yeah. And being a clinician, I've been through it, with burnout and all the different things. And all I can say to everyone out there is it's all fixable. You don't have to bail on your career. You don't have to switch jobs. Focus on your inner world first and see what happens from there. And that's what we're trying to provide. So I know you're juliewilkes.com. Our Heal Thyself program is listed under Tailwind Trainings. We'll have all this linked up in the show notes, along with your Instagram, your YouTube. And again, Science Meets Soul. 2 episodes so far. Love them, Julie. Want to congratulate you on this. What an incredible show. And I can't wait to continue to listen. Before we drop off here, I want to ask a final question that I like to ask of all my guests. this podcast is really about, regardless of who you are, we all sort of have different things that light us up. We all want to kind of contribute to this great life. We want to have great relationships. We want to feel amazing about who we are. So envision that you have an 18-year-old being in front of you, whatever that looks like. And they're looking at you and they're saying, Dr. Julie, I really want to live a great life. I really want to be true to who I am. I want to serve. I want to do all these beautiful things. What would be one tangible step that you could offer this 18-year-old? Just one measurable thing that they could step into that would allow them to start on their path.
Dance every day. And I know this will sound really unusual. I will say that dancing every day allows me, and let me give you a quick backstory. I had gotten to a place much like what you described a while ago where I was feeling not myself. I had a lot of really hard things happen all at once. Life felt like it was imploding. And I don't know if any of you out there can relate, but I just felt like I was doing my best to try to just keep it all together every day. And probably most people never knew I was going through that, but I was getting to a point where I was feeling a 10 every day or a 9, 10 every day. And I just was I felt I need to follow my own steps. I need to get myself back. And I would do my techniques and I would do the things, but I was still not getting myself back under that 5. I was still just feeling on edge. And I had a wise coach. As much as I'm a coach to others, I have coaches of my own, and I think it's important for everybody to. And she said, "Are you dancing?" I said, "Dancing? No, I don't know." And she said, "I want you to get up every morning and as part of your routine, put on a song and dance." And I will tell you, the first time I did it, I felt like a fool. Second time I did it, I felt like a fool, but I kept doing it because she said, "You're going to change the energy in your body." So every day now I look forward to putting on a song and just dancing first thing before I take my walk. And I will tell you, it has changed everything about my energy. It's lifted me. And think about when you're dancing, you're joyful. It's created all of these things. So even if you just shimmy a little bit around your house in the morning, listening to a song and putting those vibrations into your body, knowing that you are energy and what you surround yourself with, how you move yourself, the vibrations you surround yourself with. Think about what music does for you, how it lifts you. Start your day off every day with something like that. And I promise it'll change everything. So that's the advice I would have given my 18-year-old self. And I want to turn it back over to you, Dr. Brett, as a final. And I want you, since you started off with what am I grateful for, I want to finish off today with what are you grateful for?
You know what? I'm really grateful for a lot of the collaborations that I'm involved in, and collaborating with you is one of them, you and Chris. But, I found that, you can go, what do they say? You can go fast alone or far alone, but you can never go as far as when you collaborate and you share ideas and execution. That means you share setbacks. That means you share triumphs. But I have found that collaboration is something I'm so grateful for. Now, my wife's a collaborator. I had got to spend some time with my wife today. I'm super grateful for that. This is the second time I've been in your presence today, Julie. So I'm grateful for that. So I think, one of the things we learn from Heal Thyself is when you go through the process of starting to learn more about your own emotional intelligence and your EQ, you start to realize and remember what's actually important to you. That was one of the biggest takeaways that we got from the group of clinicians. And so if you're asking me, one of my big takeaways from today is how grateful I am that I get to collaborate and interact with great people, because ultimately everything else can fall away. But when it's all said and done, it's the relationships that we have with each other, what we've gotten, what we've given, that ultimately are the greatest gift of life. So that's where I'm at. I'm grateful for collaboration and super grateful for you, Julie.
No, thank you. What a wonderful time spent. And I hope that challenge to everyone out there is pick one thing. Don't make it a big thing, just the smallest thing you can do to have the biggest impact in your life right now, and start there. Maybe you just want to read up a little bit more on this emotional intelligence. Maybe you want to check out our Tailwind Trainings page and see what we've got going on over there. We've got some resources for you to try, complimentary on the spot. And maybe you just want to get into your own habits again of something positive that you put into the start of your day. But whatever it is, you are worthy of feeling good and strong and taking care of yourself, and maybe potentially even taking your life back if it feels like it's gotten away from where you feel like you used to be. So you are worthy of that. So thanks so much for listening. And Dr. Brett, thanks for having me on.
Wow. Well, sure, it's not going to be the last time. So I look forward to our next episode. Dr. Julie Wilkes, thank you so much for being here, for sharing of yourself and your heart, and can't wait to see you in the next one.